Oh,
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
well, let me pin it to me. Good morning, everyone, and welcome
morning.
to the Spirited Healing Academy. We're a full house here. Good morning, Mike. I am
Morning.
Reverend Michelle Scrimgeour Brown, and it is truly my pleasure to welcome you all here this morning here at the Spirited Healing Academy. Well, let me pin it to me. I'm trying to mute everybody, and somebody's talking now. Good morning, everyone. Oh, it's me on the YouTube. The Spirited Healing Academy. We're a full house. There we go. Thanks for your patience as I grapple with technology. So here at the Spirited Healing Academy, we are an assembly of people who will teach each other to find the miracle of joyful living from life circumstance to accomplish that which seems impossible. And our intention with these gatherings is to stimulate thought, create connection, and expand consciousness, which all sounds so fancy, but really my intention with these gatherings is to talk about deep stuff with people who like to talk about deep stuff and to follow whatever rabbit holes of insight and inspiration lead us forward. So I'm looking forward to beginning that again with you all this week. Hope you've all had a good week. I am going to click on share screen and we'll get to the business of sharing our opening intention. Nancy, you asked me before we started here what the topic was, and so I've skipped ahead in the presentation. But I got that resolved now, I think. Okay. Here we are. Somehow, my tech is not agreeing with me today. I really appreciate your patience, everybody. Maybe it'll work this time. That's much better. Okay. Hello. May I come to understand that blessings are everywhere, that my attitude will affect outcomes, that challenges are often gifts in disguise. May I come to trust that most things can get better with time, that my instincts and gut feelings have value, that a positive attitude makes things go smoother. May I come to see that I have many skills and talents I can use, that I am a positive influence on many people, that there are those who wish me well. May I come to value that today is a blessing to be enjoyed, that each person is unique and important, and that each moment of my life has meaning. So this week's topic, I have a topic, and I even had it yesterday. Look at me being all prepared in advance. Aren't you guys impressed? I know I am. This topic hit my newsfeed earlier this week. It was a screen capture or maybe a photograph of a page in a book called The Book of Comfort, written by an author named Matt Haig. And this page that was captured in the image was called What to Do When We Hit Rock Bottom. And I thought that this was a really interesting thing for us to discuss, particularly right now, as there is so much division in the world, particularly right now, as so many people feel inflamed and frustrated, particularly right now, as so many of us feel like no one is listening, feel like it's impossible for us to be heard. And particularly right now, as so many of us are striving to figure out what we can do to make a difference. So, without further ado, I shall introduce you to this week's topic. For when you reach rock bottom, you have survived everything, that should say been, everything you've been through. Stay for the person you will become. You are more than a bad day or week or month or year or even a decade. You are a future of multifarious possibility. You are another self at this point in future time, looking back in gratitude that this lost and former self held on. Stay. Isn't that lovely? Remember, you're muted, so I don't get to hear you if you don't unmute you.
I think it's
easy for us to be caught up into, this is the end of the world and what are we going to do? And really engulf ourselves in the despair of this must be the end of time or my life. Or actually, you know what it reminds me of? As I'm speaking about this, is like a teenager, a young teenager, where everything is so intense and everything is the end of the world and everything is, how am I supposed to go on, and I don't know, it just brought me back to that time. Yeah. I feel it would be hard to be a teenager in this particular time, just because of all of that heightened emotion.
Well, let me tell you, as somebody who lives with 2 teenagers, they are not fazed by this.
Really? Oh, okay. Well,
they are not fazed by this. Their whole life, they've been surrounded by the next great catastrophe, right? Like they started their education learning that the world was ending and that their grandchildren might not have a planet to live on. Like for them, this is just no big deal. They are not fazed.
Which is great. I do know of others that don't feel the same, but yes, I wasn't necessarily only meaning COVID and
like, I'm not trying to be flippant and make light of it. The point that I think I was driving towards is that this generation has a lot more resiliency than my generation did.
Yeah.
That's what I'm meaning to say, right? They're used to, this is today's end of the world moment, which is kind of a travesty. But there it is.
Wait till you see tomorrow's. Yeah, totally. I get it.
Yeah. I love this reminder that you are more than a bad day or week or month or year or even a decade. And then that next sentence, you are a future of multifarious possibility. Now, before somebody asks, I'm going to look up multifarious.
That was my next question. I have an idea what it would be like, or like what it means, but let's hear for sure what the definition of multifarious is.
Okay, define multifarious. It says many and various types, having many or various parts or aspects.
Oh, that's true.
I'm not sure what you said, Mike.
Yeah, I was starting to talk, but what it kind of reminds me of is that we have potentially, we're like multidimensional people living out like multidimensional, like many timelines at the same time, depending on what frequency you are in, you're going to fluctuate into that consciousness of that body. So I don't know. I've just heard so many people talk about we're so multidimensional, and some people like Bashar or they'll say that you're flickering in and out of all these different multidimensional things. Like every second, you're like into like so many different other possibilities of where your timeline can go. But quite often it stays pretty coherent because we don't realize these fluctuations all the time.
Yeah, and when we have those moments of, I don't understand what's going on. What just happened here? How did this happen? We've just flickered into a different reality.
Right.
You don't understand it because you weren't there a moment ago.
But whatever your frequency is, like where it is now, is going to fluctuate or put you into the next, whatever your next timeline is. Even though it's all like, I guess it's all happened already. It's all we have is the now moment, and that's kind of what you're feeling.
I'm surprised we haven't heard from Nancy yet.
Nancy's training herself to shut up.
Well, it throws me off. I thought, maybe she doesn't like this quote. Maybe she thinks it's crap.
No, it starts out and I thought, I'm always the one to speak first. And I thought, I've got written on a piece of paper, shh,
Aw,
listen,
Nancy.
no, because I dominate. I'm a talker. And because of isolation, haven't been out and about and my social skills have really dwindled. Let me
Well, I want to
confess.
let you know that I never feel like you dominate here. I feel
Oh, well.
like we have a really good balance of voices in this conversation always.
Yes, well, I feel I talk too much and over explain.
Well,
I agree with Michelle. This is a discussion, right? It's supposed to be open forum.
I
Agree.
agree.
as this says, you are more than, you know what, Nancy, this is not part of my conversation, but I'm going to stop this share because I got to show you this, this, I guess, affirmation or that I took from Matt Kahn this week. He posted something and I loved it so much that I wrote it out in pen. It says, no matter what I think, believe, or tend to feel, I am absolutely incredible at being me.
Write that down, Nancy.
No matter what I think, believe, or tend to feel, I am absolutely incredible at being me.
Oh, that's a new
Fucking love
perspective.
this so
Yeah.
much.
It's a good one.
That is beautiful.
I think we all need to know that.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Love
So
it.
true.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
we're
what
all
did you think of the
supposed to
quote,
be-
Nancy?
Yeah. About
Yeah,
the quote, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No worries. I was just gonna think, like, I think we're all supposed to be so unique, and we're like divine sparks of God, but we can't try to be like somebody else, because that's not what God wants. He wants everybody to be
Aw.
unique, be yourself, be your own
Ain't that the
thoughts, feelings,
truth?
and beliefs, right? So that, and
Ain't
even
that
with
the
all this
truth?
separation stuff going on, we're all supposed to be separate. We're all supposed to have like a unique spark of God, but at the same time, we come from the same source. So we are
Right.
one, but we're all supposed to be unique.
The God in me recognizes the God in you. Yeah.
There you go.
This
Also,
is
like
our
my-
reset time. This is a time we have to reflect on ourselves and what we've done in the past and what we want for our futures.
Mm.
So I think this is a reset and just checking in on ourselves.
I would agree. So let's go back to this quote then. I'm going to read it again. For when you reach rock bottom, you have survived everything you've been through. Stay for the person you will become. Can we just talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, you're trying to. I think you're trying to talk somebody off the ledge. They're just about to jump, but stay. You're going to become somebody great.
Sure, but you know who I think I'm talking off the ledge, Mike? I think I'm talking me off the ledge.
Yeah, no, it's true. We all need that
One of
little
us.
pep talk once in a while.
Stay, Michelle, stay present in this moment of pain or despair or frustration or anger or loneliness or boredom or joy or peace or forgiveness or for the person you will become. Ooh.
I think-
Reminds me of that saying, this too shall pass.
Mm.
You know, when you're at rock bottom, this too shall pass. And there will be, there'll be some good times ahead.
Mm.
I think yesterday I had a moment where I kind of, was in the basement and I kind of hit a wall and I just thought I was really frightened of a whole bunch of things. And I kind of just sat there and out loud said, all the worries I have and what was going on. And it was kind of funny because I thought, not funny, but, I just stated it out loud and I kind of went, oh, wow, just saying it out loud
Yeah.
somehow or other made me feel better. And then I thought, this is temporary. Because yesterday I went back to sometimes it's, one breath at a time,
Right.
one day at a time. And
Right.
I was thinking, of previous periods in my life when it's been, at the time years ago, it was 1 minute at a time, building up to 5 minutes at a time. But Susan, when she taught a year or two ago at one of our meetings, the one breath at a time, when she introduced that idea, that really blew me away, because I thought in that moment when you're hurting so badly, that just getting through one breath, which sometimes seems impossible on occasion, you know, it's just that just have to do one breath at a time, and then you get yourself calm, you know, and then you go, oh, this is just one of those moments, and how many times have I been through this and survived? And
Yeah.
This reminds me actually, Nancy, of the about when we were talking about, you know, your fears and your feelings just need space. They don't need all the space, you know, they don't need to rule your life for full consumption, but they just need space for you to say, I feel fear.
Yeah.
I have been feeling fear. I see you, I recognize you as an emotion.
Or very simply, I love you, afraid.
Right.
mhm. I like what you said, Mervet. That's a quote kind of, they don't need to be, oh, I can't quite remember the rest, but consume your life with, rule your life with in full consumption. Anyway, you put it better. I'll run it back later and write it down, but it was, yeah, that's good, because that's the thing, you can get consumed by the negative, challenging things. And that's this
And
that's the
that's more
secret.
likely to happen when we don't give these emotions space to be felt and heard. When
Right.
we argue with their validity, when we argue with whether or not we want to be feeling this right now, we are denying them. And then it's more likely to take hold and become your rigmarole for the next however long. Just let them be what they are. And this too
I don't
shall
think I don't think our society is very comfortable with emotion.
In the past, it hasn't been, but we are at the dawn of a whole new age.
Yes, we are.
Age of-
Yes, we are.
Age of Aquarius. I don't know.
It's the dawning of the age of Aquarius. You are a future of multifarious possibility. So if we put that in language we understand, you are a future of various incarnations. You are another self at this point in the future time, looking back in gratitude that this lost and former you held on.
I can think back to a time like that where in the past there was a portion of my life where my home life was awful, and I remember thinking to myself, well, in the time, what got me through was, thank goodness I'm going through this and not anybody else, because anybody else who would go through this would have probably done something very harsh to themselves at this point. But I can take it. I am okay. I know how to distract myself. I'm going to be all right. And I remove myself mentally from the space that I was in. And, you know, later looking back at it, I really taught myself a lot of things in that space. But of course, in the time you're thinking, you know, the why me creeps in for sure. How do I get out of here? You know? But I would agree that when you look back on those low times, you think, I'm glad I'm still here. I learned a lot from that situation.
Yeah, I think that it's really a powerful technique, right? To look back at the times where challenge was rife and I had no idea how I was going to move forward, and to say, whew, thank God I was brave enough to keep breathing.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And
I
when we
w-
can root ourselves in experiences of gratitude for what we did sustain and overcome, then we get to a place where we can actually embody self-love.
I was watching 9/11 yesterday, and all the stories And out of those stories, there was grief, but also came joy. And that multivarious opportunities came up for all these people. They said they could have curled up and died along with their partners or friends, but they chose to go on and help their memory of that day. And I just thought all the things that came out, like sponsorships, fundraising, togetherness of the communities. I thought it was just amazing.
Yeah.
There
Just
was
amazing.
one clip that I was watching, and it was a man who said he was living, I don't know, across the river from Manhattan, and he was down and out. He was a drunk, he was using drugs, he was so depressed, and he thought he was at the end of the road. And 9/11 happened, and his phone rang, and he didn't answer it. And his sister left a voice message. Honey, I know you're not answering the phone because you're down there helping, right?
Yeah,
And he listened to that message and he thought, what planet is she living on? You know, it blew his mind. The furthest thing from his mind was to be down there helping. But he got out of that apartment and went down and helped.
Right.
And it changed his life. He met a couple of Marines and worked with them. And I don't know how many people they brought out of the rubble, but they just kept going and going until they couldn't find any more people.
oh,
Yeah, I just cried. I thought, you know what? Like one little phone call that you didn't pick up. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Full,
It really speaks to the power of connection.
yes,
yes. And other people's faith in you, even when you think you're nothing,
Yeah.
not worth anything, you're done.
Yeah.
And that connection brought him back up to live a phenomenal experience.
yeah. I just thought that brings true, that statement, that you are more than a bad day, a week,
Yeah,
a month, and a year,
Yeah.
and even a decade. And look at this second decade, and so much positive has come out of that event, even though it was a terrible, tragic day for many. But I
Mhm.
thought that really pulls that in. So we have to put that to our own lives, no
That's
matter
it.
how small or how big our challenges are.
That's it exactly.
yes.
And if you were to read, say, a magazine article or newspaper article where, say, your life was described, the challenges in it, and how you overcame it, someone else would read it and go, holy cow, how did that person get through that? That is amazing. But we tend not to look at ourselves with the eyes that we look at someone else.
You never
Mhm,
think of yourself
exactly.
as a hero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think the deeper the hole you get into, the more of a hero you become. And that's
So true, Mike.
yeah.
100% that's true.
I was going to share with this quote reminds me of a training that I watched with Bentino Macero. I don't know if anybody's familiar with him, but he puts up his hand and he says, like, this is maybe the timeline you're on. So you're going down this timeline, but you always have a choice to go a little bit higher or maybe a little bit lower or quite a bit lower. Or you can go like right up. You can like really rock it up. But most often we're choosing something very similar to this timeline that we're on. But all the time we can fluctuate to a different timeline. So if you're conscious in every moment, you can start choosing something a little bit more exciting or something a little bit more that you're passionate about. But sometimes we're just afraid to like shine our light too bright. But this hand training was something I think of often, is like, oh, can I choose, just be a little bit more daring and
I
courageous.
think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And you know what I would say to that? I've been thinking a lot about this. I don't know how it's going to come out, whether it's going to be a blog post or a video or something, but I've been thinking a lot about how when events happen, our knee-jerk reaction generally is to show up as our traumatized self. We show up as the person in the trigger, right? So if we're looking at that hand that you're talking about, Mike, then when what our trigger's showing up, we go this way. But if we allow ourselves the space to think about what's happening, if we allow ourselves a moment to breathe, not like hours and days and weeks, literally a moment to draw breath and center in who we are, we have the option to stay here or the option to, as you say, go a little bit higher.
Yeah, it's kind of
But
the
when we
like,
don't
are you gonna
allow
react?
ourselves that pause, we will default to go down.
Yeah.
In
It's
like
kinda like
90% of cases, we will default that way.
it's instead of reacting like that, quick reaction, you can actually respond and
Yes.
maybe take that breath and say, okay, what would be a more loving choice at this moment,
Yes.
or a
The
more
power of
exciting
the
choice.
pause. The power of the pause means that you show up as who you are rather than who you were traumatized to be.
Mhm.
Ooh, that phrase, who you were traumatized to be. Wow.
Yeah.
And Mike, I love that hand. That is powerful. That hand
That was
description
That's a cool
blew me
visual.
Yeah,
away as well.
we've got two of them, so we can kind of like always remember. And I like this because
Mhm.
every once in a
Yes,
while you
that's where
choose
you
that
end
really
up.
like
Thumbs up. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah,
Perfect.
that is an option, right? And I think that's what this quote is talking about too, is it's sometimes that person that skyrocketed to some amazing things on the planet looks back and says, wow, I was down in this deep dark hole way back on my timeline somewhere. And if I didn't stick with it, or if I didn't learn the lessons of being in that deep dark place, I would not have got to this place where I am now.
Mhm.
Everything makes you who you are at the moment, and you got to love yourself where you are at this moment.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Okay,
Yeah.
let's take another look at this quote and see what last things we have to say. You have survived everything you've been through. Stay for the person you will become. You are more than a bad week, you are more than a bad day or week or month or year or even decade. You are a future of multifarious possibility. You are another self at this point in future time, looking back in gratitude that this lost and former you held on. Stay.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah.
it's so delicious.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it is. It just knocks my socks off. But I'm stuck on that word multifarious and thinking in many ways, most of us have been that most of our adult life. When I think I was a wife, a mother of 3 kids, I had a very responsible job. I was on the PTA. I was involved in every aspect of my kids' lives. I was on the Brownie Parent Committee. I was, when I think of and I was a different person in each situation.
Mhm.
Well, I brought different skills to the table
Of course.
at each. Yeah. But the words I'm thinking are kind of not coming through clearly. But anyway, I think we've all been multifarious in one way or another most of our lives. And
Yes.
so now we're embarking on a new platform,
Yes.
moving into the 5th dimension. Another amazing bit of awareness.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can
But
look
this is
back.
the first time I've met up with that word. I quite like it.
I know. It's nice to find new words, eh, Ma?
Yeah.
Well, I like the multifarious possibility
Yeah.
because it opens many doors for us to choose something different
Yeah.
that excites us
There you go.
and makes us want to keep going. Mhm.
Yeah. So much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And often it comes up in my practice. I will say, you have a choice, and my clients will say, no, I don't have any choice. And my job is usually to point out that even if the alternative is a choice you don't like, It doesn't mean it's not a choice, right? Even though it's something you would never ever do, it doesn't mean it's not an option. And the power of recognizing those options that are out there that you would never ever do, really, the power of that is that you become empowered, that you recognize you are choosing this path forward, even though you maybe don't like this. Maybe this is the least of the worst options, you know?
Mhm.
You don't feel like the victim. You feel like the person who is empowered and making choice in your life about which direction you're going to go. That multifarious possibility is critical to your healing journey. Yeah, for sure.
Choice.
And
And-
I think you, oops, sorry.
I was just going to say, anybody else have anything to say? Let's hear it, Nancy.
I was just going to say, I remember a part of, in my life, a time in my life, which was very rock bottom. You know, anyway, it was a really dark period of my life, and I was in my early 20s. And I remember being amazed, looking back now, it just came to me that a few years later, my life was so different and so
Mhm.
incredible for a time
Mhm.
that if I look at those two contrasting people, incarnations of me at those specific points of time, you wouldn't even think they were the same person. You
Right.
wouldn't even, with what that first person was going through and living, and what that second person had somehow manifested in her life was, you know, like, wow, like, how did that happen? And yet, if I have never realized that before, that, yeah, you know, something to remember when you're hitting the rock bottom moments.
And that's the multifarious you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So lovely.
Mhm.
All right. Well, if no one else has anything else to say about this.
I was just going to add to your part where you were talking about not having a choice. And one thing that always stood out to me was the one time that you said, even if you had a gun pointed to your head, and then you said, well, I had no choice, I had to do it. The answer is no. The other choice was unthinkable.
Right.
And then that story always just stuck with me, always. And I'm like, you know, even if the other choice is unthinkable, it was still a choice, and you
Yeah.
chose life, or you chose whatever.
Yeah.
That
You know-
always, forever, it just, that really resonated with me.
I'm glad to
um,
have landed for you, Miss Mervette.
You know, the that gun to your head thing, you know, it kind of like it makes me think of, you know, one of the big fears we have is this fear of death, and a lot of it is like we're running around in survival mode. We're trying to survive, but we think of all the worst case scenarios that could be happening, and it almost like freezes us from really maybe living life to our full excitement, because a lot of these fears are false illusions appearing real. And then we also think about death, and death is like, we're infinite beings too. Our body might die, but our consciousness goes on. And so I'm thinking like, oh, all these little things, like you always have choices. And I think our consciousness comes here to evolve and grow up and make more loving choices.
Mm.
Totally.
Yeah.
I would agree.
But
So
we're often
that-
scared to death.
All right. Well, what I'm going to do now is mute everybody, and we will shift over to our affirmation of hope. If I could make the tech work. There we go. Hope, fragile, luminous, and buoyant, fill me now. Bring your gifts of optimism, faith, and positivity. Grow strong within me today and every day. Increase my connection with those around me. Balance my moods with a lightness of being, and touch all those I meet with blessings. Hope, fragile, luminous, and buoyant, fill me now. humble and expand my heart with openness, making me compassionate, relaxed, and kind, aware of the many blessings I have each day, making of me a better, more human person. Hope is a gift that passes through me to others. And so it is. Thanks for being here, everyone. I hope you have a beautiful week in your multifarious possibility. I love y'all.
Thank you, everybody.
You're
Live and
Yeah,
awaken
I
life,
mean,
everybody.
Love
happy